The rain had started before midnight. By 1:12 a.m., it was steady against the perimeter fencing of Fort Holston Army Medical Center. Wind pushed thin sheets of water across the floodlit parking lot. The base hospital stood bright and controlled against the dark badge scanners glowing green at every secured door. Maya Reese stepped through the main entrance with a folder tucked under her arm. Civilian coat, civilian shoes, temporary clearance. The MP at the desk checked her ID twice. "Overnight rotation?" he asked. "Yes, sir." He scanned her name against the list and printed a thin plastic badge stamped "Visitor, Clinical Observer, Red Stripe, Limited Access." He clipped it to a retractable cord and handed it over. "Escort only beyond ICU corridor. No independent movement after row 200. Follow chain of command." "Yes, sir." He watched her a second longer than necessary, as if trying to reconcile the word visitor with the steadiness in her eyes. Inside, the fluorescent lights hummed. The hospital felt different from civilian ERs. Cleaner lines, tighter posture, less noise. Even exhaustion here had discipline. The charge nurse met her near the central desk. "You're the civilian rotation?" she asked. "Yes." "Good. Stay out of the way." No greeting, no orientation speech, just instruction. "We don't improvise here," the nurse added. "This is a base hospital. Protocol first." Maya nodded once. "Yes, ma'am." She took the empty workstation assigned to her. No login privileges beyond observation. No independent chart access. Burden, not asset. A resident brushed past her without looking. "Try not to block hallways," he muttered. She stepped aside automatically. The ICU doors glowed red under keypad panels. MPs paced the far corridor at fixed intervals. Camera domes blinked softly overhead. Maya did not stare. She counted. 32 seconds between patrol turns. 3-second lag on badge scanner before green light. One camera angled slightly too high, leaving a thin, blind wedge near the supply alcove. She said nothing. Instead, she picked up a clipboard and moved toward the supply room. Crash cart seals intact. Oxygen tanks secured. IV trays stocked, but one tray missing a backup extension set. She replaced it quietly. No announcement. She moved down the corridor and noticed a side access door wedged open with a folded cleaning cloth. The wind pressed against it, making it shift slightly. She removed the cloth and let the door seal. The click of the latch was soft. A civilian nurse glanced over. "You don't have to do that," she said lightly. "Maintenance props it during late shift." "It wasn't fully seated," Maya replied. The nurse shrugged and returned to her phone. Maya continued. Visitor log clipboard near the nurse's station showed a blank line after 0040. She adjusted the pen so it wouldn't roll off the desk. Minor corrections. Invisible. At 1:26 a.m., an elderly retired sergeant in Bay 3 began coughing sharply. The assigned nurse was tied up at another station. Maya stepped in without urgency. She adjusted the oxygen flow slightly, lifted the man's shoulders into better alignment, and placed a steady hand on his forearm. "Slow breaths," she said quietly. The cough softened. Respirations evened. The nurse returned and found the patient stable. "Thanks," she said, distracted. Maya stepped back. "Visitor. Stay out of the way." In the hallway, an MP patrol passed again, boots echoing on tile. Maya watched the reflection of their movement in the polished floor. She noted the rhythm. Routine creates predictability. Predictability creates openings. She did not think the words aloud. She simply stored them. At 1:31 a.m., a junior medic approached with a training injury patient. Nothing critical, just a wrist fracture from a field exercise. The escort spacing was off. The second MP lagged half a step too far behind. Maya noticed. No one else did. The patient was secured quickly. The medic laughed lightly. "Overnight's dead," he said. "Only excitement is coffee." The charge nurse nodded. "Let's keep it that way." Maya returned to the central desk and reviewed the hallway angles again, without appearing to look. Camera blind wedge, badge delay, propped door now sealed. Visitor log incomplete. Patrol rhythm consistent. She did not know why the unease had settled into her spine. She only knew it had. At 1:34 a.m., a soft alarm chirped briefly from one of the overhead monitors. A test signal. The sound lasted 2 seconds before silencing. The resident waved it off. "System test," he said. "Ignore it." The staff resumed conversation. No one looked up. Maya did. Her eyes moved instinctively toward the wall-mounted screen that displayed system status codes. The test cleared. Green again. She listened beyond the silence. Rain against glass, ventilation hum, boot steps at the far end of the corridor. Everything appeared controlled. She checked the badge scanner near ICU again. 3-second lag. Green. She clipped her temporary badge closer to her chest. Visitor, observer, not authority. The charge nurse passed by her once more. "Remember," she said without slowing, "this is not your hospital." Maya inclined her head. "Yes, ma'am." She returned to Bay 3 to check the retired sergeant's oxygen line again. Steady, stable. Behind her, the wind pressed harder against the sealed door she had latched minutes earlier. The building held, for now. And somewhere deep in the system, beyond routine, beyond protocol, something shifted. Maya did not move. She just listened and waited. The rain did not let up. By 1:41 a.m., it struck the reinforced windows in a steady rhythm that blended into the hum of fluorescent lights. The base hospital remained outwardly calm, monitors steady, charting screens glowing blue, MPs pacing in fixed intervals. Maya stood near the supply cart in the central corridor, rechecking expiration dates on IV fluids that did not need rechecking. It gave her an excuse to stay in motion. A supply runner came through, pushing a metal cart stacked with sealed boxes. "Delivery's late tonight," he muttered to no one in particular. He stopped near the desk and lowered his voice. "You hear about the contractor earlier?" The charge nurse looked up briefly. "What contractor?" "Some civilian guy," the runner said. "Badge said maintenance, but he kept asking where the server room was. Didn't know which wing he was assigned to." The nurse shrugged. "Maintenance rotates." "Yeah," the runner replied, uncertain. "Still felt off." He pushed the cart onward. The comment lingered in the air for half a second before dissolving. Maya did not comment. She glanced at the visitor log clipboard again. The last entry was time-stamped 0040, no supervisor signature beneath it. After midnight, no second check. Her eyes moved to the digital sign-in terminal near the entrance. Green status light, operational, but no visible double verification once traffic thinned. Routine weakens after midnight. It always does. A civilian doctor stepped beside her, reviewing labs on a tablet. "You look like you're waiting for something," he said lightly. "Just observing," she replied. He gave a soft laugh. "You're jumpy." She didn't answer. Instead, she shifted slightly and noticed the side corridor door again, the one she had latched earlier. It was closed, but the latch plate had not fully seated. A thin line of darkness showed at the frame. The wind was pressing against it. She stepped forward, pressed the door flush, and listened for the full click. There. Secured. The doctor watched her briefly. "You think someone's breaking in through a rainstorm?" he asked. She met his eyes calmly. "I think doors should close." He shook his head and walked away. At 1:47 a.m., the hospital radios crackled. Short, clipped, not the usual casual check-ins. "Unit 3 repositioning. Copy. Gate status confirmed." Static. Silence. The tone had shifted. The words were minimal, professional, less conversational. Maya felt it settle in her spine. She moved toward the ICU corridor and paused near the red-lit keypad panel. 3-second badge delay, still present. Behind her, a medic rolled in another training injury, minor shoulder dislocation from field drills. The patient laughed despite the pain. "Should have stretched," he said. Two MPs escorted him, but their spacing was off again. One walked too close to the gurney. The other lagged behind by nearly 6 feet. That gap created a blind pocket between them. Maya watched the formation without staring. If someone slipped between those 6 feet in a crowded hallway, neither MP would have full visual. No one else seemed to notice. The charge nurse signed the intake form without looking up. Maya stepped aside as the gurney passed. Her eyes followed the reflection in the polished floor. She mapped it quietly. Main entrance, ICU wing, pharmacy vault corridor, records room, 2 choke points where hallways narrowed near supply storage, 1 safe room behind the ICU nurse station with reinforced doors. She did not know why she was mapping, she only knew she was. The radio crackled again, confirming perimeter integrity. Copy. A pause, then a softer voice. Report anomaly at east fence line. Static swallowed the rest. The doctor from earlier glanced toward the ceiling speakers. Probably wind interference, he said. Maybe. Maya walked toward the east corridor window and looked out through rain-streaked glass. The perimeter lights flickered briefly, then stabilized. Wind pressed hard against the fence beyond. She noted the distance from the east wing to the nearest internal staircase, 30 seconds at walking pace, 15 at a run. The supply runner returned, now empty-handed. "They're locking down some gates," he said casually. "Storm protocol." The charge nurse frowned. "For rain?" The runner shrugged. "Just repeating what I heard." He left. Maya returned to Bay 3 to check on the retired sergeant. He slept lightly, oxygen steady. She adjusted the tubing to prevent tension near the bed rail. "Everything okay?" the assigned nurse asked. "Yes." The nurse studied her for a moment. "You look like you're expecting a fire drill." Maya's eyes moved to the hallway again. "I prefer doors closed," she said simply. The nurse exhaled. "Relax. It's a base hospital." Exactly. At 1:53 a.m., a soft tone sounded from the overhead system, not loud enough to alarm, just enough to signal internal testing. The staff ignored it. The radio chatter resumed, shorter now, sharper. "Confirm interior sweep. Stand by." The rain intensified briefly, rattling the east windows again. Maya stepped toward the central desk and quietly adjusted the visitor log clipboard so the missing signature line was visible. No one looked at it. She scanned the hallway one more time. Doorways, angles, lighting pockets, badge scanners, MP rotation. If something happened, it would not come loudly at first. It would come through the gap everyone assumed was too small to matter. She felt the unease settle fully now. Not panic. Calculation. She did not speak. She did not warn. She simply positioned herself where she could see both the ICU corridor and the main hallway without moving her feet. The hospital remained quiet, disciplined, orderly. But the order felt thinner, like fabric stretched too tight, and somewhere beyond the east fence something pressed back. At 1:57 a.m., every wall screen changed at once. Green system bars dissolved into red. Perimeter breach. Lockdown level 3. The words were not loud, they were absolute. A tone followed, sharp, mechanical, sustained for 3 seconds. Then the blast doors began to move. Metal panels slid down over the main entrance with a grinding sound that felt too heavy for a hospital. For half a second no one reacted. The charge nurse stared at the nearest screen. "Is that a drill?" someone asked. No one answered. The red-lit keypad panels along ICU doors shifted from standby to solid crimson. Badge scanners blinked amber before switching to restricted mode. An MP sprinted down the corridor, boots striking tile in fast, controlled steps. "Lockdown! Secure wings!" he shouted. The security supervisor's voice came over the overhead system, tight and uneven. "Maintain positions. Await confirmation. Do not self-deploy." Another voice cut in over radio, overlapping. "East corridor breach confirmed. Units repositioning." Conflicting. The difference between command and reaction narrowed. A civilian doctor stepped backward from his workstation. "Level 3 is perimeter only," he said. "Internal operations continue." Another nurse shook her head. "No, level 3 means limited internal movement." "No, that's level 4. The debate started as the doors continued descending. In Bay 2, a patient's wife stood abruptly. "What's happening?" she demanded. An orderly tried to reassure her. "It's protocol, ma'am. Please stay seated." But panic moves faster than reassurance. She stepped toward the ICU corridor, eyes wide. "My son's in there." She broke into a run. Maya intercepted her without force. She stepped into her path, voice steady. "You can't go through that door." "My son, he's secure," Maya said evenly. "The safest place right now is where you are." The woman trembled. Maya held her gaze, not aggressive, not pleading. "Breathe," she said softly. "Follow me." The words were not loud. They were certain. The woman stopped resisting. Maya guided her back to the seating area and signaled a nurse to stay with her. Behind them, another nurse stood frozen near the medication cart. Her hands shook visibly. "What protocol is this?" she whispered. Maya turned toward her. "Level 3, exterior breach, interior containment." The nurse swallowed. "I've never seen one." "You don't need to see it," Maya replied. "You just follow flow." She pointed toward the reinforced alcove behind the ICU desk. "Move supplies there. Keep patients in rooms. No hallway clustering." The nurse nodded and moved. No title, no announcement. Just directions spoken quietly enough that it felt like shared logic rather than command. MPs rushed past again, splitting at the intersection. But something was off. Maya watched the east corridor. Response timing was wrong. Too slow on the second pass. 2 MPs should have cleared that stretch already. She glanced toward the camera monitor near the nurse's station. One feed flickered, just for a second, then returned. The security supervisor's voice came over the radio again. "All units hold until command authorization." Another voice cut through. "Negative. We have movement near service stairwell." Confusion, chain of command bending under pressure. The charge nurse looked at Maya. "Where do we stand?" "In place," Maya answered calmly. "Until they clarify." The blast doors at the main entrance sealed fully with a final metallic thud. The hospital's air changed. Sealed buildings feel different. Pressure shifts. Sound becomes contained. A medic pushed a gurney toward the central bay and stopped abruptly. "What now?" he asked, no one in particular. "Keep moving," Maya said quietly. "Movement keeps people calm." He nodded and continued. The trembling nurse returned from securing the supply alcove. "ICU doors are red-locked," she said. "Good," Maya replied. An MP lieutenant entered the corridor at a controlled run. "Status? Patients contained," the charge nurse answered. He nodded sharply and moved on. Maya watched him disappear down the hall. The spacing again. Too wide between units. The east corridor still not fully covered. Something did not align. She stepped closer to the camera console without drawing attention. The flickering feed stabilized, but one angle remained partially obscured by glare from overhead lighting. A blind wedge. She felt the weight of it. The radio crackled again. "Internal access suspected." That word shifted the room more than perimeter breach had. Internal. Inside. The civilian doctor from earlier stopped laughing. The nurse beside Maya inhaled sharply. Maya kept her posture neutral. She scanned the hall again. Exits, choke points, ICU redlock, service stairwell, pharmacy vault corridor beyond. Then the overhead paging system activated. A calm, clipped voice spoke one line. "Reese to command. Reese to command." The corridor went still. The charge nurse frowned. "Who's Reese?" The resident looked around. Silence. The page repeated. "Reese to command. Immediate." Maya felt every pair of eyes shift toward her visitor badge. It read, "Maya Reese. Temporary clearance. Observer." The nurse beside her blinked. "You?" Maya did not react outwardly. She removed her hand from the camera console and clipped her badge back into place. "Yes," she said softly. The MP lieutenant reappeared at the corridor entrance, scanning faces. His eyes locked onto her without hesitation. "Reese," he said. "No salute, no explanation. Now." The hospital realized, in that suspended second, that the visiting rookie had just been called by name during a breach, and no one in the room knew why. The page still echoed in the corridor, but movement returned quickly. Lockdown did not pause for identity questions. Maya did not go to command immediately. Not yet. The east corridor remained exposed for another 30 seconds at least. 30 seconds is long enough. She stepped toward Bay 4, where 2 post-op patients had been placed temporarily due to overflow. That hallway opened directly toward the service stairwell, too close to the reported anomaly. "Let's move them into interior rooms," she said quietly to the nearest nurse. "Use beds 7 and 8. The nurse hesitated. "Those are isolation rooms." "They're secure rooms," Maya replied evenly. "Negative pressure works both ways." The nurse nodded slowly and reached for the first gurney. Before it could move, a senior physician stepped into the path. "Stop," he said sharply. He looked directly at Maya. "You are a visitor. Do not direct staff." His voice was not panicked. It was territorial. Maya met his eyes without challenge. "Yes, sir." She stepped back. Outward compliance. The gurney remained where it was. The physician turned to the nurse. "Keep current placements. Follow lockdown binder." He gestured toward the red emergency protocol binder mounted near the station. The nurse looked between them. Maya did not argue. Instead, she stepped toward the patient's bedside and adjusted the IV pump. "Can we reposition for comfort?" she asked gently. The nurse nodded. "That's fine." Maya leaned toward the patient. "We're going to move you slightly," she said, voice calm. "Quieter room." The patient nodded weakly. The nurse began to roll the gurney toward the interior rooms. The physician frowned. "I said maintain placement." Maya looked up, expression neutral. "She requested quieter lighting," she said simply. The charge nurse watched the exchange. Her eyes shifted from the binder to the hallway to Maya. She said nothing. The gurney passed the intersection and turned into the interior wing. One patient relocated. No argument, no defiance, just movement disguised as routine care. The second gurney followed with similar quiet reasoning. The physician opened his mouth to protest again, then stopped. The relocation was already done. The hallway stood emptier now, less vulnerable. The charge nurse approached Maya once the physician stepped away. "You read the lockdown flow?" she asked quietly. "Yes." "You read it fast." Maya's gaze remained on the east corridor. "Flowcharts assume clean variables," she replied. "This isn't clean." Before the nurse could respond, Maya's head tilted slightly. Boots, soft, measured, not sprinting, not MP cadence, too controlled, coming from the service corridor that had not yet been cleared. She raised one hand, palm down, a small signal. Pause. The charge nurse froze instinctively. Maya did not look at her. She listened. 2 steps. Pause. A shift in weight, then silence. No MP radio confirmation followed. Her eyes moved to the camera console again. The east corridor feed flickered once more. A shadow crossed the frame, not running, moving against the directional arrows taped on the floor, against protocol flow. She stepped closer to the console. "Rewind last 10 seconds, she said. The nurse operating the station hesitated. "We're not authorized." "Rewind," Maya repeated calmly. The nurse complied. The footage rolled back. There, a figure at the edge of the frame, no visible badge, hood partially raised, moving opposite evacuation direction. The charge nurse inhaled sharply. "That's not an MP." "No," Maya agreed. The senior physician reappeared, frustration rising. "What are you doing at that console?" Maya did not look at him. "There's movement in East Corridor," she said evenly. He crossed his arms. Security is handling it. The radio crackled faintly from the nurse's station speaker. But the MP lieutenant was not present. Units were spread. Maya extended her hand. Radio. The nurse at the console looked uncertain. That's restricted. Radio, Maya repeated, calm, steady. The senior physician stepped forward. Absolutely not. You are not in this chain of command. Maya lowered her hand. Understood. She shifted her gaze back to the hallway. Boots again. Closer this time. Too soft. Not sprinting. Intentional. The charge nurse whispered, "What do we do?" Maya's voice remained low. "Close the medroom door." The nurse moved. "Turn off the overhead corridor lights in this wing." "Why?" "Because glare hides movement." The nurse complied again. The hallway dimmed slightly, emergency strips glowing instead. Contrast improved, the camera feed sharpened. The figure was clearer now, 20 yards away, moving toward the service stairwell intersection, against the flow. The senior physician's certainty began to thin. "You're escalating this," he said, but his voice lacked force. Maya looked at him once. "Escalation is already happening." The overhead system crackled again. "Reese to command. Immediate." The page sounded sharper now, more urgent. The MP lieutenant entered the corridor at a controlled run, scanning faces again. His eyes found Maya instantly. "Reese." He stepped closer. "You were told to report." Maya nodded once. "There's movement in East Corridor," she said quietly, "against lockdown flow." The lieutenant's expression did not change, but his jaw tightened. "You saw it?" "Yes." "Confirmed?" "Yes." The senior physician started to speak. The lieutenant cut him off with a glance. Then he looked back at Maya. "Stay here," he keyed his radio. "Unit 3, redirect to East Corridor Interior. Possible internal movement." Static answered. Maya remained where she stood, visitor badge still clipped, hands steady at her sides. She had not raised her voice. She had not claimed authority. But the flow of the hallway had shifted around her, and somewhere beyond the intersection, Boots moved again. The MP lieutenant did not waste movement. He entered the corridor with 2 soldiers behind him, Boots controlled, eyes scanning without hurry. He did not look alarmed, he looked focused. His gaze moved across faces, doctors, nurses, patients behind glass. It stopped on Maya. "Reese." No rank. No explanation. "With me. Now." The charge nurse blinked. "She's just—" The lieutenant did not look at her. "Now." Maya felt the weight of the corridor shift toward her again. The senior physician folded his arms. "This is inappropriate. She's a visiting nurse." The lieutenant's eyes flicked toward him once. Command requested her by name. Silence followed. That did not happen on accident. Maya glanced toward the ICU wing. "I'm needed here," she said calmly. "You are needed there," the lieutenant replied quietly. "And here." He did not raise his voice. He did not insist. He simply stepped aside to clear her path. "Command asked for you by name." That phrase carried its own gravity. The charge nurse studied Maya differently now. "Go," she said softly. Maya nodded once. She did not remove her gloves. She did not adjust her badge. She walked. No pride, no hesitation, just movement. The lieutenant fell half a step behind her, not leading, not following entirely. The corridor lights hummed overhead. Red panels still glowed along secured wings. They turned toward the administrative section, normally quiet at this hour. Maya counted intersections without meaning to. Main desk, supply closet, service stairwell to the left, blind angle near the records room. Camera above the intersection angled 5 degrees too high. She marked it. 2 MPs stood at the entrance to the temporary command office, rifles lowered but ready. Inside, 3 screens displayed live feeds from across the hospital. Rain streaked across exterior cameras. Interior feeds showed empty corridors, sealed blast doors, red-locked ICU entries. Radios crackled in overlapping fragments. East fence line secured. Possible badge clone. No confirmation on internal target. The command officer stood at the central table, map of the hospital displayed digitally in front of him. He looked up as Maya entered. No surprise in his expression, no introduction. "You're Reese." "Yes." He studied her face for a brief second, then gestured toward the screen. "We have confirmation of internal movement. Access panel tampered near service stairwell. No visual ID yet." The lieutenant stepped to the side, remaining silent. The officer continued. "Initial breach at East Perimeter may have been diversion. We're conducting a sweep." Maya looked at the map. Red markers indicated MP positions. They were spread wide, too wide. Covering perimeter first. Interior response lagging. "Where was the deactivated badge used?" she asked. The officer paused. "Service stairwell 2. "What clearance level?" "Level 4. Maintenance access." Maya nodded once. "Has the pharmacy vault been sealed?" The officer hesitated. "It's on lockdown." "Physically sealed?" "Digitally." "That's not the same," she replied evenly. The lieutenant glanced at her briefly. The officer's eyes narrowed slightly. "What are you suggesting?" She did not step closer. She did not lean forward. She spoke as if reviewing a chart. "If the perimeter breach was diversion, the objective is inside, pharmacy vault, records, or ICU-controlled substances." The room grew quieter. Radios softened in the background. "Why not create chaos?" the officer asked. "Because chaos triggers full base response," she answered. "Access is quieter." The lieutenant shifted his stance. The officer looked back at the map. "Continue." Maya kept her tone level. "You're sweeping outward from breach point. That gives space inside." The officer frowned. "That's protocol." "Yes," she said. "Protocol assumes random intrusion." She lifted her gaze to the screen showing service stairwell 2. "Has lighting in that corridor been adjusted?" "No. It should be dimmed, increase contrast, reduce glare." The lieutenant immediately keyed his radio. "Dim corridor 3 lighting by 20%. Now." A pause. "Copy." The screen shifted slightly. Shadows sharpened. Maya continued. "Lock patient wings first. Create calm lanes. Reduce hallway traffic." The officer studied her. "You want containment instead of pursuit?" "Yes." The radios crackled again. "Possible movement near med storage." The officer looked at her again. "You have 3 minutes before we escalate to full sweep. Anything else?" She did not hesitate. "Pull active badge list. Cross-reference with deactivated maintenance IDs from last 30 days. The lieutenant exchanged a look with the officer. "That will take time," the officer said. "It will save time," Maya replied. Silence settled over the room. The officer nodded once. "Do it." A technician moved to another console. The lieutenant leaned slightly closer to Maya. "You've seen this before." Maya did not answer. Her eyes remained on the map. Another radio voice cut through. "Internal access confirmed. Service stairwell 2." The red marker blinked. The officer inhaled once, controlled. "Reese," he said quietly. "Where does he go next?" Maya traced the corridor path in her mind. Stairwell 2 led to the secondary records wing. And from there, she looked up. "Not out," she said. "In." The red marker on the map blinked once more, then stabilized near service stairwell 2. The command officer looked at Maya. "You said not out. In." "Yes," she replied. She stepped closer to the digital layout, careful not to touch it without permission. "If he wanted noise, he would have forced an entrance," she said calmly. "He avoided cameras. He used a badge clone. That means he wants something specific." The lieutenant crossed his arms. "What?" "Access." She traced the internal path with her eyes. "Pharmacy vault, ICU-controlled storage, or medical records. The officer shook his head slightly. Records are encrypted. Records are leverage, Maya answered. The room fell quiet again. Radios continued in the background. East wing clear. Negative contact. They were still sweeping outward, still reacting to the perimeter. Maya spoke again, steady. Protect people first. Lock patient wings fully. No partial closures, no hallway staging. The officer frowned. We already sealed ICU. Seal med-surg, seal pediatric, create calm lanes between them. Why? So panic doesn't create movement, she replied. Movement hides intrusion. The lieutenant studied her carefully now. You're saying contain inside, not chase. Yes, if we tighten too much, we trap him. If you sweep loudly, you push him toward his objective faster, she said. Silence stretched. The officer turned to the lieutenant. We go quiet containment? The lieutenant hesitated only a second. Adjust to internal lockdown grid, reduce radio volume, move in pairs, not lines. He keyed his radio. All units, shift to containment protocol. Lock patient wings. Maintain low visibility presence. No corridor flooding. Acknowledgements came back, controlled. The atmosphere inside the command office changed. Less urgency, more calculation. Maya did not relax. She pointed toward the badge terminal monitor. I need staff roster, active badge access list, camera zone overlays. The technician looked toward the officer. He nodded. Pull it. The screen shifted to a new layout. Names scrolled. Active IDs. Recently deactivated credentials. Access levels. Maya scanned quickly. Her eyes stopped. There, she said quietly. One badge ID blinked yellow. Deactivated 12 days ago. Maintenance contractor. Yet time-stamped at 1:49 a.m. Used at service stairwell 2. The lieutenant leaned closer. That badge was revoked. Yes. And still opened the door. Cloned, she said. The officer exhaled slowly. Which zones does that badge allow? Level 4, the technician replied. Maintenance access, records corridor, mechanical wing, and adjacent utility closets. Maya nodded once. He avoids pharmacy vault, she said. Too visible, too reinforced. Records? The officer asked. Records connect to service corridor that bypasses central desk, she answered. She moved her gaze to the lighting layout. Lighting in records corridor? Standard night reduction. How many seconds between motion sensor resets? The technician checked. 8. Maya considered. Door timing? 5-second auto close. She mapped it mentally. 5 seconds to enter, 8 seconds to trigger next light pool. That created shadow pockets between them. He'll move along the darker stretch, she said quietly. The lieutenant looked at the screen. That puts him near the secondary records archive. Yes. And from there, data extraction or access to personnel files. The officer's jaw tightened. Why personnel? Because this is a base hospital, Maya replied evenly. Patient files include service records, medical readiness reports. Leverage again. The lieutenant nodded slowly. We reposition. He keyed the radio. Units 5 and 6, shift to records corridor. Low profile. Cut overhead lights by 10% only. Maintain shadow integrity. Copy, Maya added quietly. Don't approach from both ends. The officer looked at her. Why? You'll corner him prematurely. He'll trigger escalation. You want him comfortable. I want him predictable. The lieutenant gave a small nod. Single approach. Other end sealed. He transmitted the change. The room adjusted its rhythm again. No shouting, no chaotic rushing. Movement became surgical. The red marker on the map shifted slowly. Not running, not sprinting. Moving deliberately toward the darker corridor Maya had identified. The technician swallowed. He's heading exactly where you said. Maya did not react outwardly. Inside, she felt the familiar tightening. Past breach. Wrong protocol followed. Someone lost. Not tonight. The officer spoke quietly. If this fails... It won't, she replied. Not arrogance, assessment. The lieutenant looked at her fully now. You're not just a visiting nurse. She did not answer. On the screen, 2 MP units adjusted positions silently. They did not flood the hallway. They did not announce. They waited at the bend Maya had marked. The red marker paused, then moved again, into the darker corridor. The officer leaned forward. Contact imminent. Maya shook her head once. Not yet. She pointed to the timing overlay. He'll check door panel first. 3 seconds later, the feed showed the figure stop near the secondary archive access panel. Hand raised. Testing. The lieutenant exhaled. Units hold. No one moved. No loud commands. No corridor stampede. The hospital remained sealed. Calm on the surface. Underneath, movement narrowed like a tightening net. The officer looked at Maya once more. You just changed the sweep. She kept her eyes on the screen. No, she said quietly. I changed the angle. The red marker paused at the secondary archive door. Then the radio cracked. Command, we have a secondary issue. The lieutenant's head turned slightly. Report. Med-Surg wing nurse unaccounted for. Last seen near supply alcove. The room shifted. The officer looked at Maya. Name? Staff Nurse Collins, the technician answered, scanning the roster. Logged in at 1:22. No movement since a 1:50. Missing. Not confirmed taken. Not confirmed hiding, but absent. The lieutenant keyed his radio. Unit 2, check Med-Surg. Before confirmation returned, another voice broke through. ICU alert. High-value patient requires continuous monitoring. If we seal that wing fully, we risk destabilization. The high-value patient, a wounded operations officer in recovery, stabilized but dependent on tight monitoring intervals. The crisis did not change, it multiplied. The officer exhaled slowly. Divide units? Maya shook her head once. Not yet. She looked at the map again. If the intruder sensed internal division, he would accelerate. Quiet checks, she said. The lieutenant glanced at her. Clarify. No hallway announcements, no shouted names. Send 2 personnel to Med-Surg, slow walk, low profile. Knock before entry. If she's hiding, panic will escalate if you storm. The officer nodded slightly. Do it. The radio relayed the adjusted instruction. On another channel, ICU tension rose. We cannot pause neuro-observation, a surgeon's voice insisted through the speaker. This patient requires uninterrupted care. The lieutenant looked irritated. Tell him we're in lockdown. The surgeon's voice came directly into the command office line a moment later. You cannot compromise care for security theater. Maya stepped toward the console. You don't pause care, she said evenly. Silence on the other end. Who is this? The surgeon demanded. Visiting nurse, she replied. Rotate staff in pairs. Lock one corridor at a time. Keep vitals continuous. Reduce hallway movement. The surgeon hesitated. That slows response. It maintains it, she answered. You keep treating, you reduce visibility. A beat, then a clipped reply. Understood. The officer glanced at her but said nothing. The radio crackled again. False fire alarm near mechanical wing. The technician looked up. No heat signature. Likely manual trigger. Diversion. Maya's jaw tightened slightly. He's testing coverage, she said quietly. The lieutenant nodded. Unit 4, hold position. Do not redeploy to mechanical wing. Fire suppression team only. Copy. The missing nurse report returned. Med-Surg rooms clear. Supply alcove door ajar. The officer looked toward Maya. She did not hesitate. I'll go. The lieutenant's eyes hardened. Negative. With 2 MPs, she clarified. He measured her for a second. You stay behind. I know the alcove layout, she replied. If she's hiding, she'll respond to a familiar face. It was not bravado. It was logic. The officer gave a slight nod. 2 MPs, close escort. Within seconds, Maya walked down the corridor flanked by armed personnel. Boots controlled, rifles angled downward. The lighting remained dimmed in that wing. The hum of fluorescent panels felt louder here. They reached the med-surg alcove. The door hung slightly open, wrong angle, not wind, intentional. Maya lifted her hand subtly. Pause. She stepped forward first. "Collins," she called softly. "It's Maya." No response. She pushed the door gently. Inside, supply shelves lined the wall. One cart overturned. A badge scanner panel beside the service door bore fresh scratches. Not forced, probed. Wrong keycard mark visible, angled swipe. "Panel tampered," one MP said quietly. Maya crouched near the scanner. "Not brute force," she observed. "Testing access." She scanned the floor. A glove, not standard hospital issue. Black, thin, dropped near the back shelf. "Where does this door lead?" an MP asked. "Secondary service corridor," Maya replied. "Connects to records wing through maintenance junction." The intruder had not gone toward pharmacy. He was moving exactly as predicted. The radio crackled again. "Collins located." Everyone froze. "Status?" the lieutenant demanded through comms. "Found in linen closet, locked from inside. She's shaken but unharmed." Relief did not wash through Maya. It narrowed her focus instead. "He isolated her to reduce witnesses," she said quietly. The MP beside her nodded. The lieutenant's voice came back. "Archive corridor contact imminent." Maya stood slowly. "He'll move before contact," she said. "Why?" the MP asked. "Because he triggered the fire alarm and tested this panel. He's measuring response time." The red marker on the map shifted again, leaving the archive door, moving toward the deeper records junction. The officer's voice came through. "Units closing." "Not both ends," Maya reminded calmly. "They're holding one." "Good." She looked once more at the scratched panel, evidence of internal access, not panic, precision. She straightened and met the MP's eyes. "He's not desperate," she said. "He's deliberate." The hospital remained sealed, patients stable, missing nurse found, high-value patients secure. But the breach was still active, and now it was deeper inside than before. The red marker shifted again, deeper into the internal records junction. The command officer's voice hardened. "Seal the entire West Wing," he ordered. "Full compartment lockdown." The technician looked up. "That will trap 27 patients and 12 staff." "Seal it," the officer repeated. "We contain him there." On the screen, the West Wing blinked red. Blast panels at each end would drop. Internal doors would magnetize. Air circulation would shift to isolation mode. It was effective. It was final. Maya stepped closer to the table. "That's how people die quietly," she said. The room stilled. The officer turned toward her slowly. "Clarify." "If you seal the entire wing," she continued calmly, "you trap patients who can't move. Staff will panic. Someone will try to override. You create chaos inside containment." The lieutenant's jaw tightened. "We prevent escape." "You create pressure," Maya replied. "Pressure forces reaction." The officer studied the map again. "We can't allow him access to records." "You won't," she said, "but not like this." The charge nurse had followed her into the command office, face pale but steady. "She's just a visiting nurse," the nurse said quietly. Not dismissive, cautious. Maya did not react. The officer looked at her. "What's your alternative?" She did not rush. "Segment the wing into nodes," she said. "Lock 3 doors instead of 10. Keep 2 interior corridors open under observation. Quietly move ambulatory patients into reinforced rooms. Keep critical patients where they are." "That's slower," the lieutenant said. "It's controlled," she answered. The officer folded his arms. "If this fails—" "Put my name on the decision," Maya said. Silence fell again. No bravado, no demand, just acceptance. The charge nurse's eyes flickered toward her. "You understand what that means?" she asked. "Yes. Wrong protocol once. Not again." The officer exhaled slowly. "Lieutenant?" The lieutenant looked at Maya. "You're certain?" "Yes. A beat." "Execute segmented lockdown," he ordered into the radio. "Seal nodes Alpha, Delta, and Junction 3 only. Maintain interior corridor visibility. No full wing closure." Acknowledgements came back. On the screens, only 3 sections shifted to red. The rest remained amber. Containment without suffocation. Maya watched the live feeds. Patients remained in rooms. Staff moved in pairs. No stampede, no shouting. The missing nurse, Collins, was escorted from the linen closet by 2 MPs. She looked shaken but upright. No injuries. The charge nurse stepped forward to receive her. "If we had sealed the wing fully," the nurse whispered, "she would have been trapped inside with him." Maya did not respond. The red marker moved again. Now approaching Node Delta. An MP unit repositioned quietly, not rushing. The intruder paused at the junction door. Testing again. The officer leaned forward. "He's adjusting." "Yes," Maya said. "He expected full seal." The lieutenant nodded faintly. "He's recalculating." The feed showed him hesitate near the door panel, not panicked, thinking. Maya's hands remained steady at her sides. Inside, she measured risk. If he turned aggressive, but he did not. Instead, he pivoted, moving away from the node and back toward the narrower corridor, toward the only path left open, the path under surveillance. The lieutenant keyed his radio. "Units hold until he clears blind spot." The marker moved into the corridor exactly as Maya had predicted earlier. The officer glanced at her. "You forced him into visibility." "No," she replied softly. "I removed his quiet option." The charge nurse exhaled for what felt like the first time in minutes. "You took a risk." "Yes. And if you were wrong?" Maya met her eyes. "Then I would answer for it." On the screen, the intruder's silhouette sharpened under adjusted lighting. No civilians nearby, no trapped patients, no chaotic corridor, just controlled space. 2 MP units positioned at angles, one visible, one not. The officer's voice lowered. "Contain." The radio clicked. Boots stepped forward in measured pace. The intruder froze, hands lifted slowly. No gunfire, no sprint, no panic stampede. Contained. The command office remained silent for several seconds. Then the lieutenant spoke quietly. "Subject secured." Maya did not relax. She waited for confirmation. Evidence intact. No civilian injuries. Only then did she allow a slow breath. The charge nurse looked at her differently now, not as a burden, not as a visitor, as someone who had understood the cost before making the call. The officer turned toward her. "You understand what you just did?" "Yes." "You assumed liability?" "Yes." He studied her a moment longer. "Why?" She looked back at the map, at the patients who had not been trapped, at the missing nurse who had been found without chaos. "Because sealing fear is not the same as securing safety," she said quietly. The room held that sentence. Outside, the rain continued against reinforced glass. Inside, the hospital remained standing, contained, alive. The service corridor was narrow, fluorescent lights dimmed to emergency level. The hum overhead felt heavier now that the hospital had gone quiet. 2 MPs moved into position at the bend, exactly as instructed. One visible, one offset at a diagonal angle near the junction wall. "Subject in sight," a voice reported softly over comms. No shouting, no sprinting. The intruder stood near a reinforced utility door, hood lowered now, hands hovering near the access panel, not running, not attacking, focused. The lieutenant watched the feed from command. "Contain," he repeated. The visible MP stepped forward, rifle angled but not raised to fire. "Step away from the panel," he said in a measured tone. The intruder's head turned slowly. No panic in the movement. Calculated. Maya stood near the command console, eyes fixed on the screen. "He's not trying to escape," she said quietly. The officer beside her frowned. "He's cornered." "No," she replied. "He's choosing." On the feed, the intruder's hand shifted again toward the panel. A second MP moved closer, tightening the arc. Too fast. Maya stepped forward instinctively. "Don't close both sides," she said sharply, then steadied her tone. "Give him one direction." The lieutenant glanced at her. "He's contained. If you trap him fully, he forces escalation," she answered. "He still wants that door." The officer's gaze flicked back to the screen. "What door is that?" Maya zoomed her eyes in on the panel. "Secondary records junction," she said. "Adjacent to controlled medication archive," the technician confirmed quickly. "Door grants cross-access to personnel readiness files and pharmacy audit logs. Leverage. Evidence, not chaos." The intruder shifted weight again. Testing. The MP on the left tightened his stance. Maya spoke again, controlled. "Have the visible unit step back 2 feet." The lieutenant hesitated. "Why?" "Because he expects pressure. If you reduce it, he moves." The officer studied her for 1 second. "Unit 1, step back 2 feet," the lieutenant transmitted. A brief pause. "Copy." On screen, the visible MP adjusted his position slightly, non-threatening but still firm. The intruder's shoulders shifted. A calculation. Then he moved, not toward the MPs, not toward escape, but toward the panel again. Maya's voice remained level. "Now!" The second MP, hidden at the diagonal, stepped forward from the blind angle. "Hands up! Away from the panel!" The intruder froze. No lunge, no desperate movement, just stillness. The panel remained untouched. The visible MP closed distance calmly, securing wrists without violence. Metal cuffs clicked into place. No gunfire, no shattered glass, no hospital-wide scream. "Subject secured," the radio confirmed. Maya exhaled slowly but did not look away. "Check the panel," she said quietly. The lieutenant nodded. "Evidence team, secure access panel." On the feed, technicians approached with gloves and containment bags. The intruder did not resist. He kept his gaze fixed forward, still calm, as if measuring outcomes. The officer beside Maya spoke softly. "You saw that before we did." She did not answer. On screen, a small device fell from the intruder's sleeve during the search. Thin, data extraction tool, plug-in capable. The technician held it up for the camera. Attempted digital access device recovered. The officer's expression hardened. "This wasn't random." "No," Maya said. "He was mapping responses." The lieutenant looked at her. "You adjusted ours." She didn't react to the compliment. Instead, she asked, "Any additional movement elsewhere?" The technician scanned feeds. Negative, all corridors stable. The charge nurse appeared at the doorway of command, eyes searching the screens. "Is it over?" The officer nodded once. "Yes." The nurse looked at Maya, a quiet understanding settling in. On the monitor, the intruder was escorted past the dim corridor. As he passed the reinforced door he had tried to access, he turned his head slightly. A final glance at the panel. Not at the MPs, not at the hallway, at the door. Maya noticed. "He was committed to that objective," she said softly. The lieutenant nodded. "Records." "Or personnel files," she replied. Silence settled over the room again, this time heavier. The officer turned fully toward her. "You read his intention before we confirmed it." She remained still. "I read his movement." The officer studied her face. "You weren't surprised by it?" "No." He stepped closer, lowering his voice so only she and the lieutenant could hear. "Reese, where did you learn to see like that?" The question was not accusatory, not admiring, measured, professional. Maya held his gaze for a second, then looked back at the monitor where the corridor lights slowly brightened again. "By missing it once," she said quietly. No elaboration, no story. The officer did not press. Outside the command room, the hospital remained intact. Patients still breathing, staff still steady, no headlines, no bodies, just a controlled containment in a building that had almost become something else. And in the reflection of the darkened screen, Maya's visitor badge caught the light. Temporary, unassuming, but no longer ignored. Dawn arrived slowly. The rain weakened first, fading into a thin mist against reinforced glass. The sky beyond the east perimeter shifted from black to steel grey. Inside Fort Holston Army Medical Center, the fluorescent lights remained the same, but the air felt different, heavier, used. Lockdown status shifted from red to amber, then to green. Blast doors retracted with a controlled hum. Badge panels returned to standby glow. The hospital resumed movement, not loud, not relieved, measured. Staff spoke in lower tones than usual. Footsteps were softer. Radios clipped and precise. The intruder had been transferred off-site before sunrise. No gunfire, no casualties, no public alarm. Only internal documentation. In the command office, a brief debrief was conducted. No applause, no dramatic recap. The senior officer reviewed timestamps, access logs, and procedural shifts. The lieutenant outlined response changes implemented during containment. Maya stood near the back wall, visitor badge still clipped to her chest, hands loosely folded. Unremarkable. Her name was mentioned only twice, once in reference to containment adjustment, once regarding node segmentation. She did not step forward. She did not correct wording. The loudest civilian physician, the one who had dismissed her hours earlier, stood across the room, arms folded again. But his gaze did not lift to meet hers. Not avoidance born of anger. Recognition. The charge nurse stood beside him. Her posture had changed. When she spoke, she did not use the word visitor. She said, Maya recommended. Small shift. Meaningful. The senior officer closed the digital briefing file. Perimeter vulnerability will be reviewed, he said evenly. Internal access protocols will be revised. He looked toward Maya. Badge cloning mitigation and lighting adjustments will be permanent. She gave a small nod. Not pride. Agreement. The lieutenant stepped closer once the room began to empty. Command would like to discuss formal integration, he said quietly. She understood what that meant. Advisory role, security liaison, something permanent. I'm here for rotation, she replied calmly. That could change. She considered it for a second, then shook her head. What should change, she said instead, is your midnight verification policy. The lieutenant studied her. Explain. No secondary log confirmation after 000. Camera glare in records corridor. Deactivated badge audit delayed by 12 days. He did not interrupt. Fix that, she continued, and you won't need me next time. The lieutenant exhaled through his nose. You're turning down a formal position. Yes. Why? She met his eyes. Because systems should work without the exception. He held her gaze for a moment longer, then nodded once. Understood. He did not argue. No contract was offered again. Later, near the east wing window, the senior officer approached her privately. No staff nearby, no cameras focused on them. He did not salute. He did not extend his hand. You prevented casualties, he said. Simple, professional. She inclined her head slightly. Everyone followed adjustments. You made them, he replied. She did not respond. After a beat, he added, that question earlier. She looked at him. Where you learned to see like that? He did not push further. He did not require an answer. Instead, he said quietly, we will correct the breach. Then he stepped away. No ceremony, no citation, no spotlight. By 6:12 a.m., the night shift thinned. Day staff arrived in fresh scrubs, unaware of how close the building had come to something irreversible. Maya walked back to the central desk. She unclipped the temporary visitor badge. The plastic felt lighter now. She placed it carefully on the counter. The charge nurse noticed. "You're leaving?" "Yes." The nurse hesitated, then said quietly, "You weren't a burden." Maya allowed the smallest acknowledgement of a smile. Good. No emotional exchange, no dramatic farewell, just understanding. She stepped back into the corridor. The hospital had returned to routine. A respiratory monitor beeped steadily in Bay 2. An elderly patient stirred and coughed lightly. Maya paused at the doorway and stepped inside. She adjusted the oxygen tubing gently, ensuring no tension at the cannula. Checked the saturation level. Stable. She repositioned the blanket so it did not drag against the IV line. Her hands did not tremble. They never had. Outside the room, staff passed by without stopping. No one pointed, no one whispered. The hospital moved forward. Maya finished adjusting the tubing and stepped back. The patient slept again, calm, alive. She turned toward the window where the last of the rain faded into morning light. No audience, no recognition, just fluorescent hum and steady monitors, and a hospital still standing.